Hey guys, welcome back to the Hybrid Athlete channel. I always want to say host, not really a host, is it? It's not a podcast. I am Dr. Paul Rimmer, the owner, presenter, all-round idiot that presents the Hybrid Performance Athlete YouTube channel, whatever you want to call it. Today is just a quick training update. So here we are, Friday the 1st of April. No April Fools today, nothing ridiculous for you to mislead you. I'm not that childish. I am that childish. But yeah, today is the last day of this training week. It's been a really tough week this week. I've just jumped out the pool. Today was literally just get in, smash some intervals out, 25 minutes of intervals, so just doing hundreds. I'm not a particularly fast swimmer, but at the moment, those sessions are just about working hard. I've got plenty of time to work on my swimming efficiency. I'm going to get some more lessons. I had some lessons last year. I've had some lessons over the last few years, but then obviously COVID kind of got in the way. So I do need to get some more lessons. I really feel like I've got the sort of power and general kind of breathing and everything sorted. I just need to work on my ability to hold on to a pen, my stroke efficiency. But at the moment, those sessions are just about working hard. So I've just been doing sub 2 minute, 6 to 8 sub 2 minute 100 meters with a little bit of technique work and drill work at the end. So that was today's session. The only other session I've got left tonight is just a bit of a core session, a bit of what I call like an injury prevention session. So that would just be a little bit of core strengthening, some work around the hips, the glutes, so things like Copenhagen planks, various bridges, dead bugs, some kind of Pilates style stuff. And then, then there'll be a little bit of mobility and stretching work off the back of that. Yesterday's session was my first interval session in a while, running interval session. I did it on the treadmill. Did it on the treadmill for two reasons. One, because after the 60k at the weekend, 60k run at the weekend, I just felt like my knees were a little bit sore. Everything was a little bit compressed, shall we say. So obviously with the treadmill having a little bit of extra cushioning, it gives me just a little bit more, everything's a bit more linear. So those sort of twists and tweaks, just whilst I let a few little bits of me that are bowed and bruised from the weekend heal up. Nothing major, I wouldn't say anything was injured, but it's just, a few aches and pains where it can distract you from the adaptation that you're trying to get out of a session. So, and the second reason was because last Saturday it was 26 degrees, which is 80 odd degrees Fahrenheit. Yesterday it was like 4 degrees in a snow blizzard. So the delightful British changeable weather kind of messed me up a little bit. And so yesterday when I ran on the treadmill in my clinic, had no ventilation, made sure that it was nice and warm, just to kind of get used to that uncomfortable feeling and sort of teaching my body to sweat again. It sounds really weird, but your sweat glands can hypertrophy. So, it was really important to just, at this time of year, the weather's so changeable, it's difficult to sort of acclimatise, or acclimate is probably the proper word, to everything that's kind of going on. So I'm going to try and do those interval sessions indoors for now, for those two reasons. I haven't done any interval sessions in a while, mainly because I've just been trying to build a lot of volume on longer slow runs, which is obviously important for my ultramarathons. It was partly that, but also because off the back end of last year, I had a few kind of hip flexory, hip adductory type issues, and I find I could run long durations absolutely fine, but long, low, slow, steady state runs, absolutely fine. But anytime I overstretched, it was causing it to flare up. So I've just been rehabbing that aggressively. Doing lots of banded work, stretching, Copenhagen planks, all that kind of stuff. Just generally trying to make the core stronger, and then obviously a lot of lateral hopping type movements as well. Obviously, when you're running trails and those change directions, if you're not used to it, that can cause a few issues. And it was off the back last year of doing a 50k, which was very spiky, shall we call it, on terrain I wasn't that familiar with, quite technical stuff rather than just the kind of more graded stuff I'm used to. So that left me with a few little wounds, shall we say. So that took a couple of months to recover. And obviously off the back of Christmas, I had the powerlifting competition, the powerlifting competition. When was that? Was that February time now? Honestly, this year's just flown by. So that was a kind of priority, was to just not embarrass myself on the platform, which meant that something had to give in training. And at that point, priority was just build a big aerobic base, lots of time on my feet, and to get strong. Now we're mixing it up a little bit. Like I say, more of what I'd say a pure hybrid program now. So it's 1 week, obviously, of resistance training, which is the next week I go into, and these weeks of big endurance blocks, which the run on last Saturday should have been basically on Monday or Tuesday this week. So that's why last Saturday's run sucked so much. One, because it was a million degrees Obviously, I'm exaggerating slightly. You have to forgive me. For anyone who lives in a hot climate, you have to bear with us. It's not the temperature that gets to us. It's just the fact that it's hot one day and then freezing cold the next. So literally, it was, 26, 28 degrees C last weekend, and then it's down to like 3 degrees again today and snowing. So yesterday was an interval session, first one in a while, so my expectations weren't particularly high. The way I describe interval sessions is they're always, the first 1 or 2 back is always hard. It's like if you haven't been on the bike for a while, the first session, it's like accumulation of lactate's pretty severe, and you get that burn in the muscle. I know people are going to watch this and say it's not the lactate that caused the burn in the muscle. I know that it's an accumulation of acidity within the muscle, the dissociation of hydrogen from lactic acid to make lactate. I know it all. Anyway, so the interval session yesterday was basically just a rangefinder. That session's going to be probably an hour. It's going to be an hour for the next few weeks. But that's probably going to build up to an hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes. So they're going to be long intervals. So each interval is going to be built up to between sort of 4 to 6 minutes. And all I did to start with yesterday was I did 800 meters work, 400 meters rest, 800 meters work. I just started roughly where I know below where my threshold is. I'm not a fast runner, guys. So if there's any runners watching this, please bear in mind that I'm like a 90 kilo dude who can like lift a ton as well. So, I don't necessarily look it on camera, but I'm a bit of a lump. I've got a lot to carry around. So my paces aren't exactly what you would call lightning at the moment. The reason I'm okay at ultra endurance stuff is just because I'm incredibly stubborn and have a natural talent for suffering, I guess is how you might put it. And again, I'm not even that fast, but my goals this year in terms of the ultra stuff is to start finishing in the top 25% really. So if there's 200 people getting towards that top 50, I'm sort of at the upper end and middle of the pack now when I've looked at other events, but we're working on that, and that's what we're going for with the Cheshire 100 in a couple of months' time. A month's time, Jesus, it's come around quickly. Sorry for my blaspheming offended anyone there. Yesterday was 800 metres on, 400 metres off. Basically, 400 metres was either like a gentle jog or a brisk walk, just to sort of, like I say, just get a feel for it, see how the knee was feeling, see how the hip was feeling. So all I did was started just below my threshold. Last time I tested, I think my threshold was around about 13-ish kilometers an hour. I'll need to check the data. So I started just below threshold, expected it to have dropped a little bit. By threshold, I mean lactate turn point, effectively. So I started at 12, did 800 meters at 12 kilometers an hour. Can't do the conversion to miles an hour. Multiply that by 1.6, you can figure it out. So I did 12. Divided by 1.6, and you'll get it to miles per hour. So I did 12 kilometers an hour, then I did 12.2, 12.4, 12.6, and then I stayed at 12.8 until I think I ended up running about 8 intervals. So I did about 6.5 kilometers in intervals, but that last interval I just basically hung on for dear life just to kind of feel like I was getting something out, a bit more out of the session. I was trying to keep my RPE for that session somewhere in between sort of 8 and 8.5, so I kind of built up to that. So I got to the 10k, basically did 400 meters to start as just a warm up, a gentle jog, then 800 meter intervals, 400 meters recovery. Next week what I'll do is probably keep it an hour, but what I'm going to do is increase the starting interval to sort of 12.6k an hour, but I'm just going to stay at that interval, so keep it nice and steady, and then maybe the last few then ramp it up, depending on what my perceived effort is at that point. I tend to program off perceived effort for my intervals now because I'll maybe talk about this in another video, but my heart rate just it's got a really weird response. It tends to get up quite high even at relatively low efforts. It's not an uncommon thing to happen. So for me, just working off heart rate and effort, there's a correlation at certain points, like getting towards maximal. But when you're talking about those kind of thresholds, like your different training zones, it's not really that relevant to me. So I do sometimes throw my heart rate monitor on just to see how things are going, just out of interest. And, my heart rate recovery and things like that back down to baseline after sessions or during those interval blocks. But at the moment, because that interval session is off the back of basically a strength week and then a really long run, it's just easier for me to program off sort of RPE. And then, we can progress that. We're going to progress that then once I've got a good baseline, and I'm hoping to get those intervals up. So I'm running, around about 13 kilometers an hour consistently for those intervals. Then what we'll do is increase the interval distance or duration. So 13k an hour is looking at like 150-ish per 400. So what's that? I can't even do the simple maths now. Like 3. So it would be like 3 350, 340, 350 per 800 meters, give or take. So yeah, we're looking at maybe putting like another half a lap or another lap on that, so extend those intervals from 800 meters to a kilometer in distance once I start getting above 13 kilometers an hour. And then obviously then we can adjust the other variable, which is, we can adjust the intensity, the speed at which we're going, we can adjust the work interval, or we can reduce the rest interval as well. So I'll play with all of those variables in due course. And typically how I work is, once I've got a good baseline and I've got, I will then, particularly off the type of training I'm doing now, I would use like a step loading approach. So I will keep, once I've got myself to a place where I feel like that last interval is, the interval duration, the rest period, and the speed that I'm running at, the effort that I'm putting in is, the speed that I'm running at means that off that last interval, I'm basically, really struggling. Then what I'll do is I'll stay at that until those sessions become easier, and then I'll increase one of those variables or maybe interfere with a few of them as well. So I think having done the first block yesterday, where I ended up doing about 10K, I think the first variable I'm going to work with is increasing my intensity slightly to average that out. So like I said, about 12.6 for the first 4 or 5 intervals, and then to 12.8 to do it that way. So that'll increase the overall volume and effort of the session. And then the other thing as well will be most of my recovery periods were walked for the 400 meters. So that was taking about just like 340, 350-ish per 400. So it's a little bit too a longer rest period of me. So what I'll probably do for this interval is just drop it down to a brisk walking speed for the first, say, 100 meters, just to get the heart rate down, and then turn it back into a jog just to get myself up a little bit. So that'll be the first 2 adjustments that I make off that. So yeah, it was a lot of talk about intervals, but that's what I did. So that's just hopefully to give you guys some ideas about how you can manipulate those training variables. There's different ways you can do it. But I want to be working on those longer intervals. Again, trying to tick 10 to 12K in that first hour over the next, in that hour session, over the next few weeks. And then once I'm getting above, that sort of 12K margin in that time frame, then I'll start to increase the duration of the sessions. So those intervals don't get too short. I like long interval blocks. I just do. Because they hurt, but they're really good for just keeping you in the game, keeping you working hard, and keeping that heart rate, your time above VO2 max, nice and high. I just find it's a really efficient way of doing it, me personally. And again, that's based off data that I've collected on myself. So they might be slightly short, a few they might be slightly longer. So this is why physiology testing is important, because you can test it where your thresholds are in terms of VO2 max and in terms of what paces, not just what paces or heart rates you reach VO2 max, but at what paces that you can maintain to spend your time above VO2 max, which is where we're going to get those adaptations, and above thresholds and everything else as well, depending on what you want to measure. So then Wednesday was just a full body strength session. I was going to try to do that in the clinic, but I basically had a day of just being busy. I had loads of admin and stuff to do, so I just did a home workout with one of my online groups. So I coach people online, usually a home workout which just involves a bands, a few dumbbells or something like that, so a few light dumbbells. So I joined in with that and just did loads of banded work. Split squats, what did I do? I've got it here. Press ups, overhead extensions, banded, overhead banded presses, banded lateral raises, split squats, single leg hip thrusts, single leg hamstring curls, single leg Romanian deadlift, if you want to call that one, sumo squats, a few little bit of biceps and arms. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post that video. So it might seem a bit weird because I'll be talking to other people, but I'm going to post that video on at some point over the weekend. So yeah, so that was Wednesday. Tuesday was a recovery session, which was meant to be the pool session that I've done today. But I got to the pool and for some reason on their timetable they'd messed up and there was like school swimming on there as well, so I couldn't get in. So in the end I just had a bit of a huff and just went for a walk and had a coffee and just sort of basically stretched my legs, just kept the body moving. Monday was just a 30 to 40 minute recovery session, which is one that I've actually posted, which is basically very sort of just opening up the joints, very glute, hamstring, ITB focused as well. So if you're looking for a quick stretching session, 30-minute stretching session, mobility session as a recovery session, I've also posted that on the training logs as well. And then obviously Monday was that. Sunday was a rest day, just hot baths. I'm going to talk a little bit more about hot baths and recovery at some point, I'm sure. And yeah, that's my training week. So now, like I said, all I've got to do this evening is another general sort of mobility and core stretchy type recovery session this evening, and then it's chill for the weekend. Weekends I like a lot of active rest, active recovery, so I'll probably go for a few walks depending on what the weather is, but there'll be nothing which is really getting me into even close to out of zone 2 if you want to talk in those terms. And then next week we are back to a heavy strength block, which will be a bit building on the volume I did the first week. So the first week I did bench, squats, another upper body session, and I left the lower body alone, did a little bit, but left the second lower body session alone simply because I was running the 60k a couple of days earlier. So next week we're going to go to those 4 sessions. Fingers crossed, this little twinge in my knee, this little twinge in my ITB, which I think is just referred down, is going to ease off and let me squat. But I'll do some squatting of some variation as well. It might not be able to throw on a really heavy back squat. So yeah, that will be next week's training. Right guys, have a good weekend, or if it's after the weekend, hope you had a good weekend, and if this is something you've randomly found on the internet, then, hope you've had a good life so far, and hope you continue to have one. Monday morning, I'll be back live with a Q&A section, so I'm going to put some feelers out to some of my other groups and ask questions about performance and things, and I will answer those questions on Monday morning. But for now, guys, have a great weekend, look after yourselves, and if you can't be good at it. Peace.